Time's up. Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, come on, you can, lump boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Howdy and hail, everybody. Welcome to another day, another Saturday of Saturday Night Drive-In, where we gather together and enjoy movies, or hopefully enjoy the movies. We never know if we're all going to agree on it, but that's the thing. We can all have opinions and in the end still be friends because we're normal. We are not wacky, crazy people. And I'm happy to be once again joined by my co-hosts for this show, Lady Balefire and Jed, the Hollywood Scholar. Lady B, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. A little bit tired, but that's okay.
I feel that.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. And Jed, how are you?
I'm doing great. I've been busy as all hell. You know, my regular stuff, Geeks and Gamer stuff is really cycling up, working on my Witcher lore video, but I love that I had an excuse to watch Willow, so it's been a good day.
I watched it yesterday. Yesterday turned out to be a real nothing burger for me because I waited for a long part of the day to settle on a video, and then by the time I got that video done, it was too close to FNT to really fire up a gaming stream. So I was like, well, that was the only thing other thing I had planned to do. And news is rough these days, and especially the way we work our videos sometimes, hard to put something out there. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll watch Willow. And I was happy I did. I was happy I watched Willow. Getting ready for today. Didn't have to stuff it in today because today we played God of War, and yeah, a death doesn't always count, Legatus. Doesn't always count.
You enjoying it so far?
Oh, it was epic. I set it to the hardest difficulty mode. We're starting God of War.
I'm a little disappointed with Ragnarok so far. 4 is way better. So
well,
far, you're playing the best of the series.
We'll see.
I'm only halfway through yet, so that might change.
Well, before we get started on the Willow, I will just say that we started off, and I died a lot on the first encounter, a lot, because the control hardest difficulty setting, God of War, hardest difficulty setting, and these are not the same controls as the original trilogy.
No.
It's a completely new game, all different muscle memory. I don't know anything, so it was learning this
soft reboot.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure things out. Meanwhile, Legatus is racking up my death counts. It's not fair. It's not fair. I'm learning the game. It just isn't fair. So I do not.
Don't worry, you'll be fine.
I do not acknowledge the so-called 54 deaths that occurred.
Ooh, that is a pretty high count. My
I
highest
died a
is
lot.
9.
I died a lot figuring things out because I was
It's a
learning how
hard
to
game.
combos and this and that, and then sometimes not taking things seriously, messing around, trying different tricks. But
It's a
he's
lot
still
like The
gonna count
Witcher
it.
in that you spam the dodge button, just like in The Witcher. That is your best friend.
Well, it's also I'm also not a great blocker, so blocking so far is my best friend once I got the hang of it.
Yeah, especially the parry.
And yeah, the block and then this and that. So combining everything now Atreus shoots the bow, adding that into shit. So a lot of moving parts that I finally was getting under hat, but still, he counted every single death, and I do not acknowledge him because it was first day, new game, practicing, hardest difficult one because I asked and they said do it.
Of course, they're gonna tell you to do it.
Well, I
Have
wanted
you
to
learned nothing from.
But I
pulling the
wanted to
chat?
do it. I wanted to do it. I was perfectly happy to do it. So, because I wanted the challenge. Anyway, but that's a whole nother discussion. We're here tonight on Saturday Night Drive-In. We're here to talk movies, and we're here to talk the 1988, what I consider a cult classic.
I do.
Willow. And we're going to say it right now. You either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. You either like Willow or you don't. It's high fantasy, but it's a strange high fantasy. We're going to get into it. And some interesting things I want to bring up considering our conversation earlier in the week on Writer's Corner. When we get to it, start thinking about it now. I want to talk about the Willow magic system just because we were talking about that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that a little bit. I want your opinion on it because as usual, when we do these things, even though I've seen this movie, I owned it on VHS way back in the day. I own it on DVD now. If the upcoming show does not completely destroy it, I'll upgrade it to Blu-ray one day. But I watch it with a critical eye. When I do stuff for this, I don't just sit back and enjoy it. I watch it with a critical eye. I try and look for things maybe that I haven't in the past, compare it to stuff. And I've got my list of things, both good and bad. And we'll see how it compares. So we'll start with Jed because I know that you hold this movie close to heart. You are on the love Willow side of this equation. So what's your history with Willow?
Well, it's one of the earliest movies that I remember watching. It's actually really one of the only non-religious movies I was allowed to watch as a kid. So
Wow.
It was very much an outlet for the creative mind that was developing at an early age for me. So my opinion on this movie is heavily, heavily biased by nostalgia. Like you were talking about this most recent watch through, I noticed a lot more flaws that I hadn't previously. Mm-hmm. But the fun factor for this movie is just off the charts.
It's still there for me. Yeah, I
it's
agree.
So there,
I noticed.
I just can't help but smiling. And it's probably been about 5 years since the last time I saw it, so quite a long time. And I was surprised to see that I could still quote the whole thing along with it, like the entire thing, even getting pitches right, groans and grunts.
I remember every moment. Mm-hmm. Every moment's there. Every Frangie and Rule line. I know. I still know it.
Weird pronunciations.
Yeah. One of the best lines. Hey, I know you. I stole the baby from you. Why are you taking a pee-pee? Why are you taking a pee-pee?
I love the brownies.
So
which way are we going? That way. That way.
Okay, Lady B, this was the first time you've seen it, correct?
This actually, I have to admit, this is not the first time I've seen this movie. But I think it's kind of a weird story. Okay, so. All
right.
I don't remember watching it, like just watching it or knowing what it was. But when I started watching it, I realized I'd seen the movie. I remember the scenes in the beginning with the pig. I remember the pink dress. And then I realized that when I was a little kid, that this movie scared the living out of me. I was so afraid of this movie. Okay. Well, maybe I should explain. I'm like, when I was a little kid, I was super afraid of dogs. And we had a dog that looked kind of like the dogs in the movie. That was really shaggy. I mean, obviously they put stuff on the dogs, but it would chase me in my backyard and I almost ran through the screen yard. And I've been like attacked by dogs. Even now, I have this kind of like gut reaction to be afraid of larger dogs. And I started watching it and I'm like afraid of it. And I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this movie and I couldn't really watch it because of that. And then Also, there was something about the little people that just really freaked me out. I'm just sorry. I'm like, this is just my little kid now. It's like, yes, it freaked me out. Like, I didn't. I think I was so young that I didn't understand what they were, and they just looked weird, and it frightened me. And I'm
Well,
just like, what the heck? And
uh,
I mean, obviously, I understand now. That doesn't bother me, and I think it's pretty cool that they found so many of those people to be in the
Yeah,
movie.
it's one of the movies where you see the most little people at one time in a movie.
except for Peter Dinklage.
Yeah. Who has now ruined all their careers.
I can make the brownies worse for you, Lady B. There's a whole cult following to this movie for those who like Vor.
Oh!
Adam, you're looking like you don't know what that is.
No,
Do I want to know what that is?
No.
Imagine what relationships a brownie can have with an adult woman.
All right, stop right there.
That was all I was gonna say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All I think is, I'm just thinking of Mr. Slade from South Park.
Yeah, and then I started so I watched it again, and then I realized that, like, okay, I'm not scared of it, but I just didn't find it like that good of a movie at all. Like, I was just like, like that's it.
Then we're gonna have some good conversations here. My experience with Willow, again, I was there, premiered. I remember it's one of those times where I had no idea what I was going in to watch because the promotion had been so scattered. There was the trailers had been so not really telling us. I had no idea what it was, and I left happy because I was a kid who loved fantasy. Didn't care, always loved it. Went out, got what little toys there were. There were only a couple of toys. Sculpts, tiny little miniature sculpts of all the characters. I had Mad Mardigan, I had Sorsha, I had Willow, I had Kale. I think I had Bavmorda. I don't remember if I had Bavmorda or not, but I had a few of them, and that was kind of it. There wasn't much to it, but there was also the Willow video game on the NES. That's a tough game. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, so all right, so this is gonna be an interesting conversation. All right, so where should we begin? As usual, why don't we talk about the casting? Warwick Davis as Willow, one of the
so underrated.
I know Warwick Davis, and this movie also has the note of being all the famous midgets in the 80s were in this movie. Every famous midget who had a repeating role.
Like Star Wars, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Wicket. He was Wicket.
Yeah,
in Star Wars.
Wicket.
He was in all the subsequent Star Wars movies as well. He was in the prequels, and he showed up in the sequels and Solo, and he was in Doctor Who.
That was a good episode of Doctor Who. That was an excellent episode of Doctor Who.
Nightmare in Silver, season 7. One. Yeah, one of Clara's first ones. But yeah, he was really good in Harry Potter as well. But yeah, he's super underrated. He needs his own movie again.
I mean, he's the Leprechaun in the Leprechaun horror movies. I mean, Warwick Davis he just had a nice career. And he even had a stint on a show where it was kind of mimicking his real life, and which is what brings us to the interesting.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and one episode had Val Kilmer was on the episode, and there was a joke about doing Willow too. And we kind of wish that had happened at this point, maybe, hopefully. Either way, and for the record, guys, we are not going to be talking about the upcoming Willow program. As of the recording of this stream, we're still 2 weeks out. So we are not going to be talking about it, but tune in because Jed and I will, of course, be sharing our thoughts on it when it happens, good or bad or bad. Anyway, so Warwick Davis, outstanding job. He delivers on the emotion, the character scale of Willow, his growth, and it's funny how he's the title character, and even though he's title character, it's still sort of a shared thing between him and Val Kilmer as Mad Mardigan and Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I thought that was funny that they named the movie after him, but he's not really the main character. Like, it's a very ensemble kind of a thing.
It is, yeah. But I think it works, though. It works because he's the central point, but
the ensemble revolves around him.
Yes, exactly. Very well put.
Oh, for sure.
And even though it's about, what was it? Hang on a second. Let's see how long.
That baby was a really good actor too.
I'm gonna get into that. I mean,
that was a very good baby.
Well, it's probably multiple babies. They usually use twins for that kind of stuff. But the emotes that they get out of the baby that played Laura Dannon. Oh, the emotes, the facial expressions of that little girl, fantastic, just fantastic throughout that. But Val Kilmer's Mad Mardigan, A+. I mean, it's Val Kilmer. Name me a Val Kilmer movie that you don't really enjoy him in. that you've seen. I mean,
I haven't
every
seen a
Valkyrie movie.
whole lot. Like I haven't
Yeah.
seen Tombstone.
Oh, you just triggered
Oh,
something.
you got to
man.
see that. That's good.
Oh, Tombstone. Oh,
Maybe that's what we watch next weekend.
No. We're off next weekend. It's
Oh,
holiday.
good.
And when we come back, it's December, and you're picking the first of our Christmas movies.
Christmas movies.
Christmas movies.
Right.
No, I don't have it up here. I got I'm your Huckleberry in my video archive though. But Tombstone. Oh,
Besides Willow, Top Gun, and Batman, I think the only movie I've seen him in besides that is The Saint.
Saint's excellent. It's right over there. Real Genius is great as well. There's so many great Val Kilmer movies. Val Kilmer is so great. But he is great as Mad Mardigan.
His hair, though, like, what the hell was going on with that wig?
Super long wig.
It was so bad.
And I do want to point out here that I don't think I'm going to disagree with Lady B on anything here. Like, I totally understand where she's coming from, and it's very nostalgia for me, and the fun factor is just really
I mean, like, I think, what it kind of just annoyed me is, like, I mean, it had that campy kind of feeling with the costumes and stuff, and I feel like that's probably the least bothersome points of the movie. I guess I can deal with that. Like it felt like I could ignore that. Maybe I wanted the story to be a little bit so I would even forget about that even more.
The story is very, I don't want to say shallow, but it's not deep.
Yeah.
It's just revolving around these events. And it's not relying
non-existent.
Yeah, the world. That we're going to get into that. I'm definitely going to talk about the world building as we go through this. But the story, it's not deep. It just revolves around these characters in this event. It does not require super deep character development. But you know what? It still makes it work, if you ask me, because it's not
like the movie where it's like and then this happened.
Well, see, if you're that. See, I don't look at things with that perspective too much.
I didn't either. I was just seeing like it just felt like there were some issues where it's like this doesn't like what they're doing doesn't necessarily even make sense. And
well, that's the thing. In my opinion, the story and what is the story? Let's lay it out for people who are not familiar. Just a reminder: the story is that we live in this world which at the moment has no name. It may get a name in the upcoming show. We live in this world where the evil queen Baphomet, queen of Nockmaar, is basically running ramshod over all the surrounding areas, all the surrounding kingdoms and settlements, all because she's a powerful sorceress. If you play the Willow video game, there's some added lore. I don't know if it's actual lore, but there is some added lore. I might talk about that at the end. But she's been run unchecked. But there's a prophecy that a baby will be born that will overthrow her or lead to her demise. It really was what is. And when you look at it, it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if she hadn't become so obsessed with Elora Danan, nothing would have happened. She would have just kept ruling. And that's the interesting aspect of this, if you ask me. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Her obsession over trying to destroy Elora Danan's soul and leads to her own demise, leads to her own doom. Meanwhile, the baby gets born and it gets shuttled down and gets snuck. Well, not snuck. That's a bad word. Smuggled. Thank you. Smuggled out of Nockmaar by a nursemaid, and then eventually the nursemaid gets caught, and eventually the baby ends up in the hands of Willow, who is the little people of the world are called Nelwyns, and then the story begins, and it's basically trying to protect this little baby, and the story just unfolds where now they learn she's got the destiny to overthrow Baphomet, but how? Who don't know why? I guess you could say it's a proto girl is the key to everything, but she's not really. She's just the reason that everything is pushed forward. Protect the little girl.
It's almost a mystery box kind of thing, because it's like we don't know
the
why
girl who's
or
the
anything.
motivation for everything.
That's a good way to put it. And so basically, and then eventually, because Willow is a morally bound character, you get that from the very beginning.
Except for when he says, "Shove this baby back in the river."
That's initial fear. Okay, yeah, he says initial fear, but I think he was afraid because you see that he's already on thin ground with his livelihood. He runs his farm by himself.
Burgle Cut.
Burgle
The
Cut.
names are so great.
Yeah. but in the end, when push comes to shove throughout the movie, he wants to protect his child, and he takes it upon himself, and he just does what needs to be done, even though he's this tiny little dude in this very large world outside his village. And like Lady B says, she's not wrong when she says that one scene just kind of leads to another, going from point A to point B. First, try and deliver Elora Danan to a Daikini to take it away. Just take it up because it's one of theirs. But then Elora Danan is destiny. Okay, then take her to Finn Rizal, who will protect her and help stop Avmorda. Okay, you're captured. Now we got to take her to Tira's Lean. Okay, we get to Tira's Lean. Tira's Lean's cursed. Oh, but now the bad guys have finally completely caught up to us after already catching us one time. Now, baby kidnapped. Final confrontation in Nockmaar. Confrontation, heroic fight. Heroes win.
I should probably say, like, my criticism is that, like, meant to, like, dread it. It's like, I definitely see how people could enjoy this and why they'd probably enjoy it still. If there's something you liked as a kid, I'm going to say this is, like,
it's simple.
It scared me as a kid, and I couldn't make myself like it. I was so scared.
But it's a very simple movie. It doesn't dig too deep. And as Jed said, the world building is very small. Let's talk about that for a minute. I think it's a good go. Jed, why don't you start us off on that? On the world.
So, yeah, it doesn't feel real, even to me. It's only these small pockets of it. Like, we get the occasional reference to whatever kingdom that I always forget.
Galandor?
Yeah, Galandor.
Something
and Tira's Lee. And we get references to these places, but we never really get the scale of it. But, like, there's the reference to the Oblivion, where she's going to send the soul of Elora Danan. There's just random references that don't actually mean anything. And so, yeah, this world, it doesn't feel real to me. I think it might as well have just been based in our real world, and the magic had been fake.
That's the thing. The problem is, and that is one of my criticisms. Now, I mean, I've seen this so many times that this is a criticism I've always had. And the video game makes it a little better. The old NES game is a little better because it expanded on stuff a little bit. And again, I don't know if that's real lore or not, but it did bring a little more depth to it in the game. But the world, you realize, okay, got the Nelwyn village, wherever the hell that is in the middle of nowhere, but still it's not so far away that Nockmaar soldiers couldn't find it when they were searching for Elora Danan. But then they travel in one direction to get to the Great Daikini Crossroads, as the Nelwyns called it. Clearly it's between Galandor and Nockmaar and whatever else is out there. But the world doesn't seem very big.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem very big. It's a small world because it doesn't take very long to get anywhere.
Yeah,
especially
that was
between Tira's Lee and Nockmaar. That's probably the one that needed.
Yeah, that's a kicker. It's like, okay, Tira's Lee, for a while, it's like if you can find it. Well, they found
if you can find it, but like, bam, they're right there, and then it's like, bam, they're in the bad guy's castle.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Rizal could find it because she knew where it was. And clearly when Kale and his forces got there, they were tracking them because they were leaving big giant tracks that they could be followed forever. But then that has been going on. So it's not very far between places, but clearly when Tira's leaned into Nockmaar, it's just you're there. And you got to wonder if that was an edit, if there was a little more in between, because the movie it's 2 hours, 2 minutes. It's just over 2 hours. Back then, they really didn't like to have movies go over 2 hours. Back in the 80s, they didn't want to do that. So that is when you look at it from the adult critical perspective, that's a thing that hangs on. But you know what? It gets washed away because I love that final battle. I love everything about that. And then we'll talk about that. But we talk about the journey. Since the world is small, but I forgive it because every moment of the journey, even if, as Libby says, it's just from an A to B point, they're going here, they're going there, it's still filled with life to me.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, from the attack on the Nelwyn village and watching all those little dudes spear that thing to death. It's like, damn, yeah, man, go. And you feel the stakes because it's a simple movie, but you feel the stakes in all of this.
I was so scared of that. I was like, closing my eyes, like, don't. Even now, as an adult watching that, I just got that like apprehension because of the dog things.
But the dog comes in there, and that's a legitimate threat to that entire village.
And I know.
And if there had been more than one, and if they hadn't sent the troop to bring Elora Danan to the crossroads, those Nockmaar soldiers would have slaughtered that entire Nelwyn village, and they wouldn't have been able to stop them. They wouldn't have been.
Well, they implied the dog ate a baby at one point, so you know the stakes are high when they imply something like that.
Yeah. Well, it was going after the baby. It was going after someone's baby. So
there's a point where you think it's in the crib or whatever, and it bites the shit out of the crib or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, he just ate a baby.
It was after someone's baby, and then somebody clutches their child, and it's like, so the stakes are high because they're trying to kill Lord Danan, and the dogs and the Nockmaar soldiers are destroying everything in sight. They're wiping shit out, and then you get to the crossroads when they finally get there after. Willow and Migosh have been abandoned by Burglecut and Volkar and the other guys with just Mad Mardigan in the cage. You learn that Galandor got crushed by Nockmaar's army, and Eric is leading the remains. But then you have these great moments where you understand the stakes of the world. This is a world at war, a world under being crushed by one horrible kingdom. But then you realize something in this, and then you take from the critical perspective, take a step forward, but you take a step back when you realize Eric's interactions with Mad Mardigan. Mad Mardigan, you serve no one. I remember this. They have that exchange, and you learn, okay, they have a history, but you never get the history.
There's no history there. It's like
you don't get it.
Like as shallow as like a dish or something. It's like I just like I think that things watching it again that really brought me out of the story were like, okay, there's brownies and like they're kind of obnoxiously annoying, but like for a kids movie I could kind of see, or a younger kids movie I can understand why that's funny, but I was like, how are those little tiny things going to keep up with the giant humans?
They caught up. Yeah, that's where
I mean like Mad Morgan like gets fairy dusted and he falls in love with the woman, but like then she's
how did they get down the mountain?
I mean, like, how, and then all of a sudden they're like madly in love with each other. I mean, she should have gotten hit with the dust too. Like,
they rushed it. Well, I mean,
so
you have to.
It's cheesy, but yeah, she's never been told she has value before.
That's kind of it. I mean, Sorsha was nothing but a loyal dog to her mother, Bavmorda, and Bavmorda just keeps insulting her, yet saying, "I trust her more than anybody else." And you realize Sorsha has never been nothing more than a tool. And when someone showed passion and remember from the moment,
I love that scene.
It's great
when he's espousing his love. It's so
you are my night, my moon, my starlit sky. It's
so
great
stupid.
Though, and Val Kilmer's
I mean, that was
putting
funny,
everything into it.
Like,
but here's the thing, though. It's still a payoff. I'm going to argue it's a payoff because when he first sees Sorsha in the tavern, he's awestruck. It's like, you're beautiful. When he's in drag there before Lug starts beating the crap out of everybody.
I'm going to say that was like my favorite part of the movie was that whole scene when he's in drag and then they like chase him out in the wagon. He's like, you're not a woman. You're not a woman.
Not a woman. Not a woman, gentlemen. Look.
It probably doesn't age well in modern sensibilities.
Well, hey, who cares?
I don't know. That's maybe why I like it so much.
It's great. It's a great scene. And I love it because of the hypocrisy. He's going to be angry because his wife was cheating on her, but then he says, "What a breed!" And it's like, oh, he can F around every once, but oh no, she cheated on him. Uh-oh. But see, but that right there, that moment, that scene, there's still so much life in that scene. It's you have a bar fight, you have this, and then you have the escape and the fight there, and
yeah, that was like the best part. My favorite part of the movie was that, and then it seemed really like you could tell things, and the brownies get drunk, and
it's a lot. That's what I'm saying. Even though it's a simple movie, every scene has life to it, has heart to it, and it captures you. And I would say that it's a movie of moments because every time these moments happen,
like a montage of scenes. Like
you're pulled into it, though. In my
opinion. And I just I felt like it wanted to be like have the depth of say like Star Wars because obviously George Lucas wrote it, and it felt like they were definitely trying to make Mad Morgan into like Han Solo, but like the depth and the care and the like quality of the writing just wasn't there.
Here's the thing: they just probably it was just a movie to be made and put out.
Yeah,
It wasn't meant to do
probably.
anything else. It wasn't meant to spawn a franchise. It was just meant to be a nice little, because that was the era of, we're going to put out mid-level movies, and it's the
That
era
was
where,
the era of what we call in filmmaking like the mid-budget movie. Like those were really big in the 80s, where it'd be something that might be like but I want to say like between 10 and 15 million dollars, and they don't really make movies like that anymore.
but I mean, it was put out, and that was the era where a lot of people were happy. Okay, if it becomes a cult classic, we're happy, and this became a cult classic.
It did, yeah.
And it found its niche, where people own it, people love it, and or like you, they're either just. I feel like you're in the meh category on this.
Yeah, I was hoping to watch it and be like, okay, like, but as soon as I realized what it was, I was like, I've seen this before. I was hoping I'd like it more than it ended up doing, but it just didn't connect, because it felt like to be so like Star Warsy, but without like
the charm for you.
The charm. That's a good way of putting it. It was like it was like watching, I don't know, like Disney. I would say it's not as bad as Disney Star Wars. No. Because at least it was like they tried to emote there, and there was some emotion, but like it just felt like it almost felt like it was trying too hard.
Really?
Yeah, it was trying so much to be like funny and quippy and being stuff that like Star Wars was, and it's like kind of like Ron Howard is known for that stuff too. That was kind of like American Graffiti. Yeah, so it was like you'd think with both of them that they'd have like some really just awesome, solid story. And I think what I could probably forgive everything in the movie if the story was better.
See, I like the simplicity of the story, because it's just, yes, I mean, maybe we want all these things to go on for so long, be so deep, that maybe we want more these days, and going back is it's a little hard. So I mean, remember, I feel like you're also starting with this from a harsher perspective, because you were so traumatized.
I was so traumatized. I was really trying to think about it, and I thought when I thought about it, like I would have enjoyed it more if it wasn't like, okay, we're at this castle where there's trolls and stuff, and then all of a sudden we're at this place that looks like Mordor, and it's just like there's no journey. And I thought like, okay, out of a journey, that's usually when we have like the character's growth and they learn stuff. And I was really expecting Willow, because I didn't remember that end of the movie, but to have that kind of a moment where he would take his kind of like simple like magician sleight of hand tricks, and he did that with the disappearing baby, but kind of make that character realization that if he just believed in himself, he could do what needed to be done.
But see, I didn't think, to me, that aspect, it didn't need that. I loved it that he wins the day by bluffing, and he wins the day by basically turning everything on its head. That it goes back to that moment when the high the high Nelwyn, or whatever it's called, Alwyn, says you should have chosen your own finger because the power is inside of you. And I think, to me, at least the way I interpret this, is it comes full circle where Willow realizes he had the power to make the difference, but he didn't have to have great power. He just needed to have faith in making the right decision, to not abandon Laura Dannon, to take that moment and not be afraid and not be intimidated, and realize that Bavmorda is blind to everything except power. And then fate took over. Fate did it. Bavmorda had the self-fulfilling prophecy where she is about to use Shalindria's wand and she's going to banish everything. But in the process, she knocks over the potion that's supposed to be used on Laura Dannon to sacrifice her soul to oblivion. But instead, she becomes the lightning rod and does it to herself. And that, to me, I felt like that was I was satisfied by it.
Yeah, that was a good part.
Especially after having the old lady witch battle. After having old lady witch battle, I was
that
like,
was
hey,
very like Gandalf and Saruman there.
I got my old lady witch battle, so okay. And they were really
They're like scratching each other. I'm like, that's a bitch fight right there.
It was a hardcore fight. We got, I mean, for special effects of the day, 1988, good little magic tossed around.
Really good.
Yeah.
Just throughout the whole thing, like the brownies, even they did
Yeah,
some really
I mean,
cool stuff.
yeah, good stop motion stuff. The dragon
Mm-hmm.
at
What was
Tyr's
that thing that in the boat? Because
What happened? Well,
I
what
don't want to
happened
be
is
crude, but it looked a little
looked like a giant turd at first. You know, I mean, or,
yeah.
It looked pretty phallic in the end, though. Is what you're
Yeah,
getting
it
at.
did.
Okay.
It just it could have just like.
Hey, you never know. You never know. But I mean, I love it all. I love it all. But Lady B, you got to go real soon. So why don't you give some closing thoughts on this and give your score?
Well, I didn't like the things that you probably think I wouldn't like the campiness of it, like the crappy costumes and the wigs and stuff like that. I almost didn't mind it, and I like kind of enjoyed that just because it is kind of like the 80s. It's kind of like reminded me of Conan and stuff like that. And I felt like what really like fell flat was, like you said, the charm there to make me get really into the story. I mean, when I try to think about how to describe how I felt about the story, it's not that the stakes weren't there or anything. It's just
shallow.
I didn't feel like I cared that much about the characters because it just seemed like the brownies were so like comic relief kind of stuff. Like Man Morgan was like, he seemed like a cool concept. There just wasn't that much.
He flips back and forth too much between being Willow's boy and then calling him Peck again when they get to Tyr's Lane. That is that. I feel like they shot some things out of order there, forgetting that he'd already progressed as a character, and then to have him calling him a Peck in Tyr's Lane. That I think that's a poor script
from like the
there.
snow and stuff like that. Like, I just. I felt like maybe they didn't need to go up there because, again, that was something that was so hard for me to suspend my disbelief on because I was just like, it's snowing, it's cold, everyone's running around like it's nothing. And then the travel times, too. It's like I almost felt like they could have cut down on some of the locations that they went to and just kept in like the non-snow area. Or I just...
Feels like the whole thing takes place in a week.
It takes... I mean, I feel like it took the Nelwyns, 4 or 5 days to get to the Daikini Crossroad, and after that, everything else happened. From after the escape from the tavern, it's probably a good, I would say, another 3 or 4 days to the lake and Rozelle's Island, and then after that, the trek north to
it's longer than a week. It just like feels like
I mean, I would say several weeks pass throughout this story. It just at moments it clips very quickly, and as I said, I feel like there is something edited out between going from Tyr's Lane to Nockmaar in the third act.
Like
there's
the
something
last part of it is
missing.
just bam.
Well, you're there. Although, like I said, I forgive that because that final battle, to me, looking at it, it's really good, and it doesn't fall into a lot of the fantasy tropes, which is why I think, even though I like fantasy tropes, it works out well. But Lady B, you gotta go. So
but like the
what's your score? What's your score for this?
I would say it's probably like a 6, maybe. Because it's like, I can see the kind of things that people would really like about it, but I can also recognize my fear as a kid is probably still affecting me. So I'm trying not to be like, it's harder for me to like suspend my disbelief and just go with it because I'm still like, I get the dogs and I'm just like,
okay, so you started off from a bad place on this, and it's unfortunate that I had to put you through that again. I'm sorry, but
no, it's okay. I'm glad I saw it again because everyone talks about it, and it's like you said, either you love it or you hate it.
I'd say
meh is probably a good place for me.
You're meh. You don't hate it, but you're just meh. If you never see it again, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right,
but I also watched it as an adult again, so I feel like I've given it a full shot.
The only reason we're doing it this here now because the new show is coming out, and
I watched this and I was looking at it and I'm just like, what is the story going to be? Because personally, if you're looking at something, you'd want something with like a expandable story or like something that had like more.
Even we don't know what they can possibly do.
And it was weird because right after I watched this, I got a YouTube ad for this show. I was like, ooh.
See, the thing is, if you put in the video game, and you can leave now if you got to go, it's perfectly fine. So thank you, Lady B, for being here. She's got to go do real life work.
Yeah, I just started a new job, and unfortunately, I have to get like 200 deliveries by the end of the month. So I get on large order program, but I'm sorry I have to leave. And Thank you guys for having me. And
As always, and we'll see you in 2 weeks in the first
appreciate
week of
this,
December.
yes.
It'll be Lady B's pick to start our month of Christmas
Christmas.
movies. So
Yes,
we'll see you
that's gonna
back.
be awesome.
We'll see you in 2 weeks, Lady B.
Thank you, Adam.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dad. Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone, for watching, and stay safe. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Bye.
All right. So now, Jed, it's just you and I. So now we can really squee. And I'm just kidding. No, it was good to have another opinion on this. I had no
Absolutely.
idea where she was going to come down on this. None at all. I mean, I knew where you were going to come down on it.
Yeah. Well,
But
I don't disagree with anything that she said. Like,
No.
from an objective writing
I don't.
standpoint, my rating would be very similar to her, but the charm factor is so intoxicating to me.
I have the charm,
So
and
I'm gonna have to give it 2 ratings at the end. The
I'm
objective
gonna
one
have
and the charm one.
I'm going to give my 1 rating with points off for the objectivity. So just like I usually do. But and also I'm coming out with even added lore because we'll talk about it for a second. It feels like there's added lore if you play the NES game. Now, I know you didn't play the NES game; it came out long before you were born. Now, the NES game came out same year or maybe a year later, next following year. That was a hardcore game, and it really didn't follow the movie at all. Not really. You were Willow the entire time. It would have been really good if it was a JRPG where you had a party, you, Willow, Mad Mardigan, Sorsha, Roselle, that kind of shit, the brownies. But no, it was an action RPG. You were Willow. You got basically different swords. Their thing was a hack and slash. You got some spells, and you basically walked through this world from the Nelwyn village all the way to Nockmar. You just went around. And you had various adventures, and you encountered more stuff than in the movie. Like in the game, there are bird people in that world, and one of the things people didn't know. I discovered this randomly when I was playing it by myself. That, as usual, our action RPGs, there's a scale of the power of your swords. You want the most powerful swords to get, and it turns out if you get this one sword, the winged sword, I think it was called, from this one bird dude, it's not that great. But then if you complete a side quest and rescue his brother, he'll power up the sword to be the most powerful sword in the game, better than one you get later on. But other things, like you will learn that if you go through, funny thing is, when you start the game, you don't have a Laura Dannon. You meet her when you go to Tirazleen in the game, when she's being protected by elementals. And you learn in the game that Bavmorda was once an elemental given human form and decided to rebel and be powerful. And Roselle was her opposite. So they add a little bit more. So I'm wondering if we're going to get that kind of lore with the show coming up. But there is lore out there. It's just from the video games. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
Somebody else. Yeah, the game was hard as hell, Mustang. You are absolutely right. That I beat it. I did beat it. Funny thing is, I when I was playing through the game, I had, and we'll talk about this because I want to talk about the final battle. Might as well jump to it from this one. When you're in Nockmar Castle, fighting your way through, you get to a point, and there's Mad Mardigan, and he's injured, and there's Sorsha there too. And Mad Mardigan, I had always hoped that when I got to that point right before Kale, who was the second to last boss in the game, that it would let me see Mad Mardigan, and I would fight Kale, but it didn't do that. It didn't do that. I really hoped it would.
It would have been great.
But the Kale fight was abysmally hard. Most so the Bavmorda fight was freaking easy compared to the Kale fight. It's one of those times where the second to last boss way harder than the last boss. At least that's the way I remember. Because I was on like one of those little kid highs playing it with the NES controller. You're like, I've been playing this for hours at this point. I'm so close to the end. I can't give up now. Kale, Kale! Oh, I beat Kale. Holy shit! All right, Bavmorda. I can't stop now. Okay, that wasn't as hard as Kale. That's what it was. That's what I remember it being like. And then I won victory. But the game was it was a hard game, but it was a good game, and it was fun, expanded lore. But that when I said I really wanted Mad Mardigan to take over for Kale, fight for Kale, because let's talk about Kale he has very few lines in the game. Most of them are shouting, "Find the child!"
It's got a great voice.
No mercy. I mean, he's just there as a force of nature. He's
so good at that. Like, he reminds me a lot of Darth Vader in the first Star Wars movie in New Hope.
Gee, George wrote it, put a guy in a mask. It's a skull. I wonder.
No wonder. Yeah, it's the same deal, just not with the development he got in later movies, but you can definitely see a through line between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like, people love those big opposing villains. And I think they work best when you have a more developed villain. Like, I like my complex villain. So you get a complex villain and then just a basic juggernaut villain.
And he's a
this
juggernaut.
movie had that very well, the balance between Bat Morda and her and him.
Yeah, I mean, Kale, he just pulverizes everything in his past and even in that final battle where they've pulled off, where after Rozelle turns everybody back from pigs and they do the gopher trick and get everything. I mean, it all comes together so well. It even starts. The scene begins. It's the morning, and Rozelle and Willow's like, okay, we're gonna do this. Willow's like, okay, have courage, Willow. And Kale's just looking down there and says, kill them. And then Willow crying out, hitting the drum, and then all the remaining Galandor soldiers pop out and they rush in there, and it's just this small little. The forces aren't big of this one because you got to, again, it makes you wonder, where are Nockmar's armies? They're not there. They're off crushing other shit. I mean,
that's the problem Rome had.
Yeah, they've Bavmorda in her hubris spread her forces way too thin. So there's nobody. There's really nobody defend. It's a small garrison defending the castle. And Kale's last detachment got wiped out at Tir Asleen. So they're there, but then the remaining forces of Galandor with Mad Margan, who's worth 100 men, gets in there, and they have this fight. And what I like about this fight is that it turns the trope of fantasy fights on its head. And I could say this now watching it. I really, because we've been talking so much about all these things lately, about all these shows, Rings of Power, this and that. We want this, one fights that, and you get a stupid fight like from Rings of Power with Arondir and the orc that they all wanted to butt fuck. I mean, you get that stupid shit, but then you get this fight here, and you look at it, and the fight of Nockmar, the Battle of Nockmar, is this gritty, up close, not flashy fight. I mean, what do you see when you look at that right now when you just watch it again?
Well, it's representative of pretty much all the fights in the movie. They seem incredibly realistic, incredibly gritty. Like, it's something that a real person would do. And that's not always glamorous. Like, the real big battles from history are a lot more underwhelming than people imagine from movie portrayals. Like Braveheart, for example. That battle at the end of Braveheart is nothing in real life. But it managed to capture the grittiness with the stakes made that grounded fight feel so massive.
Yeah,
we've been building
the
up
clock.
These characters.
They're on the clock. If they don't get up there, well, Lord Danon's done.
They've been on a collision course with each other the whole movie, even though they only met the once beforehand. They are the inverse of each other, and so it only makes sense in a cliche sort of way. But you get so much fulfillment out of their conflict that.
I mean, I'm going to admit this. It was this movie that alerted me to the in close, drag your sword across a guy's gut to get him. This was the first time I really saw that in a movie, and it stuck with me my whole life. Because, like, that's how you. I mean, Mad Mardigan, he gets it. He does it. He's not flashy. He gets in there. He does his work when he's fighting a guy. He doesn't drag it out.
He gets some licks into Kale.
Oh,
we're going to
get to that in a second. We're going to get to that. I want to get to that, but I want to finish painting the picture of this. They're all fighting, and they even managed to get a mini phalanx inside Nockmar. The Nockmar soldiers, they got the shields up, they got a shield wall, and they're protecting themselves, and they're shooting arrows. But then Eric gets up and reverses their pitch bowl onto them, breaks it up. I mean, it's these little things. Again, to us, it's charming, but I'm looking at it from this is a very nice gritty battle. And yes, I like my giant hero villain fights. I like my one-on-ones. I do it myself, and I always do it. I'm gonna always do it because that's the way I do it. That's the high fantasy that I write. But this right here, when you get the commanders of this fight, first Kale versus Eric. Now you die, and they go at it, and Eric ends up getting himself killed because he tries to get the dagger out of his boot, but Kale is twice as big as he is and twice as strong, and turns his own dagger on him. But he turns it on him, and it's like, damn. And yeah, we don't really know Eric. He's been kind of a dick since we saw him, but for a moment when he dies in Mad Mardigan's arms, win this war for me. You know, it pays off the lines from earlier in the movie. Give me a sword, I'll win this war for you. And even though we don't know their history, even though we wish we knew more, I still feel something there. It's like, oh no, damn, that's his buddy. Even though they have this love-hate, this.
I'd love a buddy cop prequel.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the few times I'd be okay with the prequel.
Just to know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then Mad Mardigan, he picks up in the end. Have you ever held one of those gauntlet blades before?
I've never even really seen them outside of this.
I was in a my stepdad had a friend who owned a knife and gun shop in Florida when I was a kid, and he used to go hang out there. And while he was doing business, talking shit, I would hang out and I would get to just mess around with some sorts. And one time, the guy there had one of those gauntlet blades where you put it on, and it's unwieldy. It's pretty unwieldy.
Of course.
It's unwieldy. But in that moment, Mad Mardigan has lost his sword in another fight at that point. He takes Eric's gauntlet blade, and the look on his face like, oh, you motherfucker. You just killed my friend. And you are the biggest bad boy out here. And he's marching towards Kale, and dude's coming at him.
Hero shot is
It's heroes. He's like, get out of my way. Get out of my way. And Kale's like this. Kale's like this. Just motions with his sword, and he charges him, and Kale knocks him around. And Mad Mardigan, he's not, I wouldn't say he's outmatched, but Kale, he's a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
He's a juggernaut. He flips it around, breaks the blade, throws him through. Mad Mardigan manages to escape, finds his sword that he left stuck in another guy, and then he get a dual wield moment, baby. And then I used to repeat that. It was one of those moments that I would repeat when I would replay this as in Imagination Land. The charge, the deflection of the double slam into Kale's face where it breaks the mask, and Mad Mardigan thinks he's down because then he hears the screams from the top of the tower. And he's like, oh shit, my new lady's up there and so's Willow. I got to get up there. But then Kale comes in right behind him, hits him from behind, and then you watch him as they're just slapping each other, trying to fight while climbing stairs. And it's gritty. They're not having a straight up duel. They're just slugging it out. And then it cuts back and forth to a couple things. Then it cuts back to them where they're on the I guess the parapet or something. It's something like that. And at that point, Mad Mardigan, he's having the worst of it because Kale disarms him, starts choking his ass. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's later. Knocks him around, and Mad Mardigan still goes with the dual wield. He switches the hand and charges him and does the spin move, knocks it away, and just drives the gauntlet blade into him. And it's just, he has a reverse grip with the double-edged sword. And then Kale's like, but then Kale's like, oh, fuck you. Slaps him, picks him up to choke him. It's like, oh shit, he's not dying. But
then, like so Chad.
It's just like, God, what does he kill him? But then Mad Mardigan, he's got something sticking out of him. Palm thrust of the gauntlet blade. He's like, and then he gets his regular blade, slices him across the gut. He slaps him again, but then he takes something else and stabs him. And while he spins it around, and I love this move, steps on Kale's sword and pulls him down into it. And you hear him go, and you hear the sickening crunch as it goes in. And then he takes another dagger and stabs it with him for good measure. And kicks him off.
It.
And then that last shot of Kale's dead body with 3 or 4 things sticking out of him. And you realize that's what it took to kill this guy. And it wasn't a flashy battle. It was just a gritty, up-close, realistic fight between 2 dudes. Okay, I'm done.
You paint a brilliant picture there. You even got the voices down pretty well. But yeah, no, it's the best way to pay off setting up such a crazy villain like that. Like I hate in movies when you have a villain like Darth Vader or whatever, and then they're beaten like chumps. No, they still made like him a formidable opponent. Kale, you just
beast to the end.
To the very end. That doesn't take anything away from him. No. Like even rewatching it, it's like he's still a beast. If you kind of cuck a guy at the end, it's like, oh, why should I care about him previously? Yeah. It's a way to justify a death like this.
The whole movie, every time something batting, Rosello going, Kale's coming! Kale's coming! It's like, when you hear Kale is coming, shit. Even though you know where it's going, it's like, oh shit, Kale's coming. Shit. He's unstoppable. Every army he's led right now has crushed everything in its sight. And if Mad Mardigan hadn't killed him, I think he would have rallied his troops and killed everybody in there. I think he would have done it because he's just dead. But to me, again, that's what I love about this movie. It pays off all these setups. You said it so well. It pays off these setups. Mad Mardigan and Kale kind of darting around each other throughout the movie. Kale recognizing that he's a threat when he's leaving Tirazleen, when he sees Sorsha and Mad Mardigan fighting side by side against the remaining troops there, and hearing here and Eric's army's coming, get Kale. I mean, it's just, it all works so well. And to me, that's why I can look past the faults and still see this simple, charming story with good payoffs. It may not be deep, but the payoffs are there in terms of lines, in terms of jokes. I mean, in the beginning, when Lord Danham barfs all over Burglecut.
Yep.
And then at the end, Dagger. And then when Willow makes the bird at the end of the stone, it shits on his face. I mean, it's just, it all comes around. The brownies making their jokes coming back. Dust of Broken Heart. The Dust of Broken Heart plays the role. I mean, let's talk about this then. Lady Balefire brought up some legitimate criticisms with the Mad Mardigan Sorsha romance. Now, I had a thing for Joanne Whalley back in the day when I saw this movie. It's like, damn.
Nothing wrong with that.
She did it for me, and she became Joanne Whalley Kilmer for a short time after that. They got married after this movie for a time. But I love me my hot redheads. I just do.
And, thank you.
Yeah. But that was I feel like I'm okay with the way this sort of thing. How do you feel about the Mad Mardigan Sorsha romance?
It does have a logical through line through it. I think the bigger thing that it needs is time. Like all the decisions
it's so quick.
Yeah, like the decisions make sense, the development makes sense if it had the benefit of, say, a year. Like she needs some time to actually sit down and think about all this. She never had a chance. She really never had any time to really think about all of this. But like how I was talking about with Lady B, she's never been told she's had any value throughout her entire life. So the first man who comes along and says, hey, you mean something to me, that has an effect on her. And that's probably not very okay in today's progressive, healthy or okay in today's progressive environment. But it's okay as the spark of something that does become real. So the through line makes sense to me. It just needed to be padded with some extra time for development.
30 minutes of more story between Tirazleen and Nockmaar.
Yep.
I think that's what's missing for, I think, somebody like Lady B who wants that little more depth, because Kale just is suddenly at Nockmaar. There's no way he's there in that fast, and everybody's just still riding up behind him.
Yeah. Well, it only would require a couple more scenes, really. Like, off the top of my head, I can think of after Tirazleen, she has a freak out. She's like, what have I done? I've just betrayed my mother. What was I thinking? I didn't think in that moment, like, just freaking out. And Mad Mardigan has to calm her down. And it's in that calm down that they have a moment to, like, actually, like, look at each other, talk to each other, begin the basis of a relationship. They both have to admit, hey, we both said some dumb things. We were both rash before, but can that rashness and unhealthiness lead to something real? Just that one scene would have helped a lot.
And here's why I think more time has passed between Tirazleen and Nockmaar, and this is just a poor editing choice, is the fact that when at the end of the Battle of Tirazleen, Willow's got a serious head wound, and he's bleeding. And we arrive at Nockmaar, and he's perfectly fine. So I think more time passed than necessary. It also would take more time for Eric's small army and the remains of that to get there in one piece. It wouldn't all just happen. I feel like there's a missing. I feel like there's some stuff on the editing room floor. I don't know. I don't do research on stuff like this. It's never been my thing. This is just logically thinking this through.
Yeah,
looking at the scenes, it feels like maybe in the script there was another version of the script. There was more that went on between there. I just feel like there's a missing piece to the movie right there, because your Tirazleen suddenly at Nockmaar, climax begin. And like I said, the only reason I forgive it is because the climactic stuff is so good for me. I enjoy it so much to this day. It's one of my favorite fight scenes in a fantasy movie, just the way it happens. But so I agree with what you're saying when it comes to Mad Mardigan and Sorsha. It makes sense when you look at it, because as I said earlier, he was infatuated with her the moment he saw her. It was I don't want to go as far as love at first sight, but he was definitely something. There was a spark there, and their catty relationship with each other up until the Dust of Broken Hearts scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's that thing where you could see that the groundwork is being laid for angry evil chick to do a face turn. It's all right there. Especially with the line at the beginning of the movie, "I fear one day your daughter will betray you." The signs are there. And Bavmorda, again, in her hubris, doesn't realize that her treating her daughter like shit all the time will come back and bite her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yet it's funny. In that moment when Bavmorda is casting the spell to turn everybody to pigs, and Sorsha's the last one standing, she goes, "Mothers, no." And Bavmorda, there's angst and pain in her face when she curses Sorsha.
It does hurt her, yeah.
And again, it would have benefited from maybe a little more character development and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this is that era, like I said, where they were very hesitant to have things go over 2 hours. And hell, I mean, right now, in this moment of time when we're making the video, the runtime for the Avatar sequel, have you heard what it is?
No, probably gonna be
over 3 hours. And the last one was 3 hours, 20 minutes. Some are saying it may even be longer than that.
I'm not gonna watch it. I don't like the first one.
I'm not gonna bother with it. I'm not touching it. But
I'd still rather watch it than 3 hours of Black Panther, though.
Well, but your point is, now they just keep throwing out these giant run times. And then, mind you, I like long movies when they're good.
Yeah,
I'll watch Lord of the Rings, no problem.
Yeah, I can watch 3 extended editions back to back, no problem. But
I've done that. I've done all 3 movies in one day before. I've done it.
So have I.
Extended.
I did it with the Hobbits as well.
So have I.
All 6? Oh yeah, it's great for the.
Okay, no, I've done all 6 in 2 days because I wanted to spread it all out for my goodness. I'm going to do this day, then we do this on this day. I wanted to spread out my weekend, but I can do the marathons. I'm built for marathons. I'll watch 8 episodes of an hour-long show on a binge watch. I'll do it.
Oh yeah.
I'll start it like 8 o'clock at night, and I'll be up to 5. I'll do it. It happens.
I've done it before. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but back then they didn't like doing that. So I feel like this movie really does feel like there's a lot of left on the cutting room floor. A lot of scenes taken out. And it would have benefited.
It was more expensive for longer movies because actual film versus digital.
Oh yeah,
it does make a difference cost wise.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the era of practical effects. They're still doing stop motion. The entire dragon scene, that's stop motion.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, and it works. I mean, and
even some of the green screen work with the brownies is phenomenal.
You can see it plain as day now, but it's still, you're to me, I'm not pulled out of it. My suspense of disbelief is not there. Also because
I really respect it.
Yeah, also because Fringy and Rule are hysterical.
I love them.
They have great one-liners throughout the whole thing.
This movie, I've always considered it like the classic turn your brain off type movie. Like this is what those movies should be. Like Transformers, I don't particularly enjoy those movies, but I think I'm getting the same thing out of this that people who love those movies get out of them. Like it's not a hard thing to process. It's just sitting there, have fun, don't think too hard, and just enjoy a movie experience. And that kind of epitomizes, in my opinion, why a lot of older Hollywood is better than the current. When was the last time that there was a movie in modern day Hollywood that was like Willow, where it's just like, yeah, it's not complicated, but it's fun as hell. You just be entertained. The first thing is entertainment.
Yeah.
It's such a strange concept that it feels way more relevant now to me than
ever. Zero agenda. There's no agenda in this movie. This is just a movie about protecting a baby and saving the world from an evil queen.
Hard to build a narrative about that. I mean,
shit happens along the way.
Woke people would say that's a narrative on right wing, but that's just because they want to hate on everything. It's like you want to protect the nuclear family. You think a baby needs a mother and a father at the end? It's going to be some nonsense with that. But no, there really is no actual agenda in it. And it's so weird. It's so beautiful.
Like you said, you turn your brain off. And it's a good comparison to Bayformers. But I mean, I can't turn my brain off Bayformers because to me, it destroyed the lore and I hated it for that. destroyed the Transformers lore. So I always hated Bayformers from the moment they came out. Also, because the Bayformers looked terrible. They looked bad. I did not like the designs on Bayformers. But we always like Bay explosions. All right, so let's see. We've kind of
No,
something for later. Something for later.
Yeah, something for later.
All right. But all right. So we bounced around. It's only the two of us. I don't feel a problem wrapping this up. But again, as always, the elevation, which manages to raise something, the score.
Yes.
And now,
this is one of the few times that I can really get into a lore or a music conversation with you. Like I'm music blind in a lot of instances. So in some of the past times when you like say you love the score, I've never really cared. But this is one that I love and can really get into this conversation with you.
Yeah, because let me see if I saw his name yesterday and I've already forgotten it. Where is it? The composer for this one. Jonathan something. I don't remember. What is this? No,
it's up there with John Williams. Like,
well, here's the thing. Well, I thought it was John Williams for a while. Then I thought it wasn't. But I mean, the thing about what makes this score great is that it's memorable.
James Horner. James Horner did a lot of great work. He did the whatchamacallit, the How to Train Your Dragon, I believe.
So the thing is, all right, so James Horner put out a masterful score for this because it achieves that one important thing that a movie has to have for a great soundtrack, a memorable theme that is instantly identifies this movie. Dun 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 dun, and you pair that up, especially the Battle of Tyrsline behind me, Mad Mardigan doing all these badass moves, even dual wielding on a catapult, and then hits it, and he goes hits it and catapults up there, and it goes Willow, and it's like dun 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 dun. It's scored perfectly, and every Kale moment is scored perfectly. When he dies, I mean, it's scored perfectly.
Oh, absolutely.
It hits
100%.
every moment, every emotion, every action, and it's great. So this is one of those moments again where the movie gets elevated by its score because it's good and it's memorable. You hear that tune and you know Willow, and it gets caught in my brain.
It does.
It gets caught in my brain. Leading up to watching it yesterday, it was in my head. I was using it to drown out shit I heard around when I was out and about. Horrible shit. You go into Walmart and that kind of crap. It's like, I need something. Okay, Willow theme. Yep, that's going to drown it out.
Yeah.
And then I get home and it's still going. In the shower, it's still going. I'm whistling it. And then I watch the movie and that helps me get it out because I got to watch the movie. But it's there.
It's one of the few movie soundtracks that like I have to smile when I listen to. Like even Star Wars, I love Star Wars, but I don't feel like smiling. Even like Doctor Who, there's a few like I get emotional responses from the Doctor Who soundtrack and the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but even out of all those, Willow's the only one that like forces me to have a shit-eating grin.
It's hero music.
Thinking about it, yeah,
hero music. It stirs something in you. And it's just great. I mean, I love it. So the soundtrack, it elevates it, and it helps to me. To somebody said there, it helps make it real for me. Yeah. I feel even though this is a very simplistic world in this movie, it's very small. There's not a lot of this and that, but the soundtrack, the emotion of the characters, everybody does a good job. They're emoting. It still pulls it together, and I have a satisfying experience, like you said. It's a popcorn flick. I'm happy. I've had a good time. I'm entertained, which is why going into the next 2 weeks, I'm so afraid. Because I don't want this memory to be ruined like so many other things have before. All right. So that being said, let's give it a score. Jed, I'll let you go first. Lady B gave it a 6. What is your score? You said you're going to have 2 scores, I believe.
Oh, I think I'm just going to reference that one of them exists. Or, yeah, there is a distinction to be made. On a much smaller scale, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is very similar to this for me, where like I enjoyed the hell out of it, but it has a lot of flaws that I do recognize. So if I were going pure 100% objective, I'd probably give it about a 6 or 7 out of 10 as well. But that charm factor has value to me in and of itself.
All those little things that make it special.
So it's worth taking into account to make a new score for it. So yeah, I'd probably give this an 8.5, maybe even up to a 9. Just that charm factor is incredibly valuable to me. And I might be clouded in nostalgia if I forgot this movie, like Alzheimer's or whatever, and watched it for the first time tomorrow. Would I have the same feelings on it? I don't know, because it, like I said, it's so rooted in my childhood. It was this and Work in the Glory. I wasn't going to watch Work in the Glory. I was going to watch Willow. It's a Mormon movie, but yeah.
But
so
you're absolutely right from that perspective. In my opinion, I wholeheartedly agree with you that the charm factors play an important role, because to me, it still makes it work. They hold up. It holds up. This movie holds up. 1988 to 2022. This movie holds up. I don't regret spending the money. I had it on VHS. I do not regret buying it again on DVD. And if things don't go to pot in the next few weeks, in the coming month or so, I will be happy to upgrade it to a Blu-ray finally when the time comes. So I like the characters. I like the simple story progression that just knows what it is. It's not trying to be anything more than what it is. Just writing a nice little fantasy flick in a very simple world. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? The magic system.
Oh, that is correct.
All right. Well, before I give my score, let's talk about the magic system. I just remember Lady B leaving. Let's talk about the magic system, since we had a great discussion about magic systems. Whoa, what was that? Did you break something?
No, I nearly did. We're good.
Okay. I was like, oh shit, are we gonna have to end because Jet destroyed something?
We're all good.
Move along. Nothing happened. Let's talk about the magic system real quick, and I think that won't change your score, will it?
No.
Okay, all right. Magic system. It's an odd magic system when you look at it, considering we talked about this kind of thing heavily on Tuesday on Writer's Corner episode 2. It's a combination, seems willpower and chanting, and they're very fluid with the chanting sometimes. One chant for one time, like Willow's different chants to try and transform Roselle change throughout the whole movie. They're never quite the same. It's always a different
one of the main examples of chanting. Like the Chief Elwyn or whatever, he doesn't chant whenever he does magic. Like when he throws the rock and turns into a bird.
Yeah.
The witches battle at the very end, they don't really chant. It's a very fluid system. It's very much a soft magic system. And normally I'm okay with soft magic in very specific instances when it's not about the main character. If the main character is involved in the magic, it needs to be hard. We need to see that develop. If it's just like, oh, some side characters use magic sometimes, and it's just kind of not the focus, not a plot-changing device, it's okay to do soft. Like Gandalf, he's an angel, not really supposed to know about that. Frodo and Aragorn don't know magic, so we're good. We're good with and Lord of the Rings. But in Willow, that is one of my bigger criticisms with it, because I feel like since Willow is learning magic, we need to know the rules.
That's one of those things that time has been passing, but they don't do a good enough job showing us that how much time has passed or how much Willow's been practicing. We know that he's been training off and on, learning words, learning the meaning behind stuff, learning to make poultices and potions. We get that because Roselle's been coaching him for however long it took them to get from the island to the frozen north. She was coaching him. And, bad Nockmar soldiers for not paying attention to that fact that they're talking. What the hell was she when they first find her? What the hell is that animal?
It's not a muskrat.
No.
I honestly don't know.
Some sort of, not
marsupial,
some sort of marsupial, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, the talking little beastie is telling the little dude how to teaching little dude magic words. I mean, but again, I agree. It's a fluid magic system. It inspired me. I still remember a lot of those words from when I was a kid, like when Sorsha is about to charge Bavmorda, Avadu. Yeah, I mean, it's like these little words. They all stick with you, I give it a pass because, in my opinion, it's inspirational. If you're looking at it, if you're wanting to create that kind of thing, it gives you something. It gives you a sound for magic words. If you want to create that kind of thing for your own universe, that maybe you can build off. I align it to like of a starting place. That's why I give it a pass, because it's creative. It's an attempt and it has memory stick. It sticks to your brain.
Yeah.
So
it does fit in with what we're talking about. It being not a super complicated movie and just popcorn fun. Like a hard magic system would have hurt a lot of that aspect of it, the fun feel to it. So I understand why they went that direction. I normally prefer a little bit more in depth, at least to a certain extent. I need to know the reasons why. Like one of my favorite magic systems ever is actually from the Aragon books. I know you haven't read those, but I really like the magic system in that. It seems cliche, but it really gets down into the transference of energy. That's what it's all about. Like anything that you do with magic, you have to be physically capable of doing it yourself. Like if you're going to move a boulder, can you actually move that boulder without magic? Unless you're stealing energy from something or somebody else, it's only what you're physically capable of. And so that really grounds it. So I really love that magical system. But yeah, it definitely works for this movie. It's just so amorphous. Like, especially the stuff that Bad Morta spouts off sometimes.
Yeah.
Like banishing her soul to oblivion. Just like stuff like that is just like, what the hell are you talking about, woman?
Again, it would help for some lore and some world building. But it's simplistic, it's fluid, and like I said, it doesn't destroy the movie. It just gives it its special little flavor that makes it its little campy coldness. So, all right. So now my rating. After having said that, my rating, again, I like the characters. I like the simple choreography. I like it. I like the acting. I like the scenery. And I like the simple story. Like I said, it knows what it is. It's not trying to be anything more than a mid-level fantasy movie from the late 80s. No agenda, just fun. Turn your brain off for 2 hours and enjoy a really good score in a nice little entertainment movie. So in the end, I give it, adding in my objective criticisms, I give it a solid 8. And a nice solid 8 because that's its objective. Taking all the stuff, the lack of world building, the I don't want to say shallow, just the lack of character development, because we're just having them react to what's going on. We're not really caring what went on too much in the past. It's all in the moment, but it still would be nice to have a little more. And the inconsistencies in time. And we'd be hypocrites right now if we didn't point that out with the criticisms we made recently to all these other shows that we've been ripping on, not having consistent time. There are inconsistencies, but good acting, a fun little story, no agenda, and heart and soul make up for something like that.
Well, the problem with these inconsistencies is they're not contradicted by the movie itself. Like you're referring to in Rings of Power, they contradict themselves, and I think that's the bigger problem. Just like cutting out stuff is different than saying this happened, but that contradicts what you said a minute ago.
Yeah,
it's still a different conversation.
Yeah, or how can you get here? How can all this be happening at the same time when everything's so distant? Everything's so far away. But yeah, so I give it an 8. Jed, you gonna land on 8.5?
Yeah.
8.5. Lady B gave it a 6. And with that, we are at the end. And watch this movie. I guarantee you're gonna have a good time. I guarantee you're gonna have a good time. I think you'll have a good time. But like we said from the beginning, you either love Willow or you don't. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to like it. We're not gonna make you watch it. Anyway, all right, Jed, thank you for being here on chat. We love you, and we thank Lady B for also showing up, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Nothing next weekend. It's Thanksgiving weekend, and I don't make anybody work on the holidays, but we'll be back on, I believe it's December 3rd. Let me check. Yes, December 3rd, my mother's birthday. We'll be back on December 3rd with our first of Christmas movies chosen by Lady B. Then I will choose one for the 10th, and Jed will choose one for the 17th, and then we'll be off on Christmas. But then when we get to the new year, we'll be coming back every weekend right here, 7:30 p.m. every Saturday for a Saturday night drive-in. You never know who might show up. We hope you had a good time. If you're watching on the replay, if you're watching it live now, please hit that like button if you did have a good time. Leave a comment below, and we will see you next time. Again, chat, thank you for being here live. We love you. We thank you. Without you, we go nowhere. So once again, have a great evening, everybody, or day whenever you're watching this, and we will check you out next time. Take it easy.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer! And let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monk boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach out to me at therennerd@gmail.com. That email's for channel business only, so I check it on a daily basis. Also, you can find me at the Geeks and Gamers forums under @ROAS, and you can find me at Rumble and Odyssey, The Renaissance Nerd. Thank you again. See you next time.